In 627 BC, the Assyrian Empire fell into sharp decline after the sudden death of its powerful expansionist king, Ashurbanipal. His passing from unknown causes triggered a period of political panic in the great cities of Assur and Nineveh, the religious and administrative centers of Old Assyria. Failing to name a clear successor to the throne upon his passing, the two sons of Ashurbanipal challenged each other for succession, but they were not the only hopeful contenders. A slew of ambitious Assyrian generals also sought to usurp the world's most powerful office, leading to a period of tense internal conflict. As troops and resources were recalled to Nineveh to support their faction's champion, the empire's administrative sovereignty over its vassal states began to slip, and the ambitious local rulers, once under a harsh servitude, sensed a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to revolt. A famous rebellion from this period recorded in the Old Testament describes Judah's vassal king, Josiah, who seized religious control over the northern territories of Israel. But larger principalities elsewhere in the Near Eastern theater claimed total independence from Assyria through violence, the most famous rebellion coming from the vassal kingdom of Babylon. By 626 BC, the records from the Babylonian archives indicate that one of Ashurbanipal's sons, Sin-shar-ishkun, had left the capital of Nineveh to build up a base of power at Babylon. Depending on support from Nabopalassar, his appointed governor of Babylon and its surrounding cities, and a popular Chaldean native. One such cuneiform text, commonly called the Nabopalassar Chronicle, records these events of 626 BC. Nabopalassar, having sent troops into Babylon, entered the city at night and did battle within the city all day. They inflicted a defeat on Assyria. The garrison of Sin-shar-ishkun fled and were plundered. For 1 year there was no king in the land. On the 26th day of the month Arasamna, Nabopalassar ascended the throne in Babylon. Quickly uniting the local tribes, Nabopalassar led a successful overthrow of the Assyrian occupation at Babylon, driving out Sin-shar-ishkun, who regrouped back at Nineveh. Skirmishes between the two powers would continue over the next decade as the Assyrians desperately tried to recover lost ground. But this victory in Babylon sparked hope throughout the Near East, especially inspiring the Indo-Iranian people with similar anti-Assyrian resentment to the east, a people known back then as the Medes. Spanning across the range of the Zagros Mountains, the Medes were an historically nomadic people spread across tribal federations with local rulers and chieftains. That is, until about the 620s BC, when the local powers were unified under Kshatrita, better known by his Greek name today, Cyaxares. Creating a strong base of power at the Median capital of Ecbatana, Cyaxares had a similar rise to prominence as Nabopalassar had in Babylon, as he too took advantage of Assyrian decline. Around 625 BC, Cyaxares entered into an informal agreement with Nabopalassar, who was seeking allies in the empire to strengthen his challenge on Assyria. Since they shared a common enemy, the Medes and the Babylonians formed a common-sense joint coalition to systematically destabilize the Assyrian supply chain and even destroy the world's superpower together. The Greek historian Herodotus briefly describes the details of this Medo-Babylonian alliance, which would strengthen over the next decade, a marriage between Nabopalassar's son, Nebuchadnezzar II, and Cyaxares' daughter or granddaughter, Amytis. When the Medes were ready to mobilize, they fought a war of attrition. Cyaxares focused on toppling the northern Assyrian strongholds, with ambitions to eventually break through to eastern Anatolia. And the Babylonians, meanwhile, made every effort to advance up the Tigris River from the southern flank. Even though Sin-shar-ishkun had secured the Assyrian throne, there were still usurpers who had marched on Assur or Nineveh to claim power. These political threats constantly required the immediate attention of Assyria's elites, detracting them from focusing on the Medo-Babylonian fronts quickly eating away at their reach. To the south, Nabopalassar would successfully retake the cities of Uruk, Sippar, and Nippur, while Cyaxares sacked Assur to the north. Assur was the traditional religious capital of the Assyrian Empire, the city being dedicated to Assur, the chief god of the Assyrian pantheon. Assur represented the empire's strength and dominance, but was also the symbol of the king's divine right to rule. The city's main temple, known as the Ziggurat of Assur, was a monumental structure and a key site of worship for the warrior god. Yet, by about 614 BC, Cyaxares had razed it to the ground, with everything else. As part of their alliance, the Medes and Babylonians split the plunder from the siege of Assur before they would officially band together to launch a final assault on Nineveh, which was located just to the north along the Tigris River. While there isn't much detail of the attack on Nineveh itself, we do have prophetic language from Nahum, one of the minor Old Testament prophets who wrote specifically about the destruction of Nineveh and Assyria Greater. He says, "Your shepherds are asleep, O king of Assyria. Your nobles slumber. Your people are scattered on the mountains with none to gather them. There is no easing your pain. Your wound is grievous. All who hear the news of you clap their hands. For who has not suffered from your unceasing evil?" The language of Nahum and other contemporary prophets offer insight into the anti-Assyrian campaigns of the day, bolstered by the successful bids by Cyaxares and Nabopalassar. By 612 BC, the joint assault on Nineveh was launched. The walls of Nineveh were nearly impenetrable, massive in size and flanked with sophisticated fortifications. It would take months to breach. Another Babylonian chronicle from slightly after this time, called the Babylonian Chronicle, details that the Medes and Babylonians crafted strategic siege engines which steadily wore down the watchtowers and choke points. It is also stated that the Tigris River suffered an unexpected flood at this time, though it is not clear whether this was from natural causes or if the river had been strategically diverted. Either way, the Tigris flooded into Nineveh, destroying the interior from within, allowing the Medes and Babylonians to breach and destroy the wall. In another Babylonian chronicle, now simply termed the Fall of Nineveh Chronicle, it describes the conquest in no uncertain terms. The city of Nineveh was taken in the month of Tishri. The Medes and Babylonians, their allies, set fire to it, and the great and mighty city was burned. The Babylonian month of Tishri roughly corresponds with September to October in the Gregorian calendar, leading scholars to estimate that the final destruction of Nineveh took place in October of 612 BC. Within 3 years of the siege, any remaining Assyrian presence would disappear from the historical record completely. Cyaxares and Nabopalassar would continue in their successful alliances, with the Medes seizing further northern territories into Anatolia, while the newly christened Neo-Babylonian Empire would further consolidate power into the southern tracts, on its own road to becoming the next world's superpower. The story of Nineveh's destruction slowly crept into cultural myths and legends, with whispers of the story primarily surviving in the Old Testament, along with a few mentions from Herodotus. For over 2,000 years, Nineveh itself would be nothing more than strategic military garrisons in various conflicts, but its former glory was buried under char and lost to the sands of time.